Is this 5, 10, 15, 20 years away?
I think it's now. I think we've achieved AGI.
You think you can have a company run by an AI system like this?
Possible. And the reason for that is this. You said a billion, and you didn't say forever. And so, for example, it is not out of the question that a claw was able to create a web service, some interesting little app that all of a sudden a few billion people used for 50 cents. And then it went out of business again shortly after. Now, we saw a whole bunch of those type of companies during the internet era, and most of those websites were not anything more sophisticated than what OpenClaw could generate today.
Talk for a minute about...
Some people call it AI is alien intelligence because, as she says, there are many ways you could achieve this. And by the way, when we talk about AGI as like same level as human or better, in fact, you have to realize that we may have machines that are much stronger in some areas and maybe more mediocre in other areas. Well, before it's all the same.
Yeah. Jonathan, can I ask you, so the field of AI, you provide many of the chips for many of the biggest companies, the most innovative companies. The field of AI has been focused on this goal of AGI, right? And it's been focused on it, A, because they all read a lot of science fiction books when they were kids, and maybe 10% because they think it's actually the proper way to get the most intelligence. Do you think that that has been a good thing for AI, that it has been so focused on AGI?
Yes, but most of the progress actually happens when you try and solve a specific problem. And going back to how difficult it is to define, back when human beings first created calculators, people thought, oh, intelligence is around the corner from machines, because up until then, we couldn't actually solve basic math problems with a computer or a mechanical calculator. And then when we beat chess with a computer, we thought intelligence was around the corner. Then when we beat Go, we thought it was around the corner. Same with language. And language is so fundamental to how we express ourselves and interact, it's really hard to disentangle. There are actually some pretty hard steps left. And so one of the, we keep having to move the goalpost, right? At one point, it would have been if you could beat a human in chess, that was intelligence. And then it became if you could pass the Turing test. Now people are talking about, well, can you go make $1 million, right, as an example of the test. But going back, I also want to bring in some of the elements of how this intelligence is different and why it may not make perfect sense. So going back to what Eugene said, imagine if you were teaching a kid how to do math by asking it first, what's 1 + 1? Audience participation, please. 2. Okay, 2. And what is 2 × 3? And what is the second derivative of the square of the hyperbolic tangent? Okay, so now imagine teaching children like that, and yet we somehow are able to do this. So in a very real sense, the machines that we are providing to AI are more capable of brute force computation, allowing them to learn in a way that no human being would be able to. We have to do it more intelligently. We have to pick problems that are within our sphere of competence. And if you look at the way LLMs work today, and they're about to change, they produce stream of consciousness of tokens. It's just one token after another, after another, after another. Imagine if I asked you to write a report, a story, a computer program, and I told you you couldn't use the backspace or delete key. Could you do anywhere as well as an AI? And so what we've missed is that AI is more intuitive than human beings currently in terms of being able to pick the next token or word, but not as good yet at the system too, and that's what's shifting now with some of these test time compute.
I'm going to bring Tom.
To have a dialogue with China, it is important that the countries that are leading the race, and there is a race, understand the risks and manage it. And you're right that it looks like we're in this competition, and that this puts pressure in favor of accelerating on capabilities and not putting too much energy on safety. And that is dangerous. But it doesn't mean that we have to just let go and just hope for the best. I think that there are examples in the past, like nuclear weapons, where countries have been negotiating treaties. Here, there's the question of verification. People are working on this. I think it's not out of the question. Once the US and China understand that it's not just about using AI against each other, but we could all lose if we build monsters that are super intelligent and that we don't control, that they have a common objective, which is to make sure that it doesn't happen. So for the same reason that the US and the USSR didn't want to see a nuclear winter and so on, right? So there is a joint motivation, and if we work on it, even though it may be hard, remember that the negotiations between the US and USSR took place in the middle of the Cold War. So I think it is quite possible. It may be hard, but we have to do it. Just one other thing is, while this is happening, like maybe negotiating and so on, the responsible thing to do is to double down on safety, like to have massive investment in safety. And there's a motivation from the point of view of governments because, well, they should not want us to build something that, you know, explodes in our face. But there's also a business motivation. As regulation is going to come more and more, I mean, it's obvious as these things become more powerful, governments will want to make sure they don't, you know, they're not dangerous. There's going to be a business opportunity to solve the technical problems of safety, like how do we build machines that are safer? And so if you don't, eventually your system will not pass the regulator.
Yeah. All right. We have about 40 seconds left. Andrew, tell us one thing you want to have happen in the next year, and then Thomas and Yejing.
So I want to say I really disagree with the idea that we should slow down. When I look at the net benefits versus some risks and some harms, I see the net benefits is massively greater than the risks. And so I think slowing down would be tragic. We're deploying AI doctor or healthcare in India. We're helping make ships 10% more fuel efficient, less CO2 emissions, massive fuel cost savings. We're using AI to build AI climate models to help with this urgent climate crisis and figure out geoengineering if we should do it. So I feel like there are all these projects, concrete business, for-profit, non-profit projects that I wish we could get going faster. So this feels to me like a wrong moment to slow down. Having said that, I think we should accelerate AI development while at the same time also accelerating the scientific research to make sure we keep on improving how we control it and understand.
All right, actually, we're out of time, but I'm going to have an audience vote. You can either vote for we should not slow down because there's so much good that can be created, you can't benefit from it, or we should slow down so that we can build in some safety, figure out pluralistic values. Who is in favor of don't slow down? Who is in favor of slow down and let's figure this out? Well, that got us nothing. It was 50-50. All right, thank you very much. Fabulous panel, amazing panelists. Love that conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, I mean, we do get into some existential questions here. In a benign scenario, we probably none of us will have a job. There will be, but in that benign scenario, there will be universal high income, not universal basic income, universal high income. There will be no shortage of goods or services. And I think the benign scenario is the most likely scenario, probably, I don't know, 80% likely if you ask, in my opinion. The question will not be one of lacking goods or services. You'll have, everyone will have access to as much in the way of goods and services as they would like. The question will really be one of meaning, of how, if the computer can do, and the robots can do everything better than you, then what does your life have meaning? That's really what will be the question in the benign scenario. And in the negative scenario, well, bets are off. We're in deep trouble. So I do think there's perhaps still a role for humans in that we may give AI meaning, but I do think that long term, in a benign scenario, any job that somebody does will be optional. Like if you want to do a job as kind of like a hobby, you can do a job, but otherwise the AI and the robots will provide any goods and services that you want.
Okay, so you see, there is a future where no one will need to work. It will be just passion.
So that is the most likely outcome.
When things are changing rapidly, the ability to predict the future, I think, becomes a lot harder because of the rate of change is so great. But I think some things are fairly obvious to predict, which is that we'll have AI or AGI that's at a level that it can really do almost any cognitive, I think really not almost, really any cognitive task. It's just a question of when. One could debate, is it, smarter than any human at the end of next year, or is it 2 years or 3 years? But it's not more than 5 years, that's for sure. I think it's probably end of next year before AI can do better than any individual human could do. But it's a much higher bar to say, well, is it smarter than human intelligence collectively? But if the rate of change continues, that's why I think probably 2029 or maybe 2030 is where digital intelligence will probably exceed all human intelligence combined.
Final question. Let's imagine that you're sitting right now in front of a teenager in Turkey, another teenager in the Middle East somewhere, like let's say Qatar or the UAE, and someone that's in Africa or Asia. And they're all asking you, what should we do in the future? How can we ensure that this doesn't take our jobs? How can we ensure that we are relevant in the AI age? How can we be part of this future that you just laid out that's very optimistic, that's extremely exciting? What would you recommend they do? Should they study something as a specific domain? Should they take a certain course? Should we just play with the technology? What advice do you have for them?
The first thing I would say is you are unbelievably lucky. You are coming of age at probably the best time in human history. You understand this technology. Young people are always the early adopters of technology, almost always, but certainly in this case. And you will be able to use these tools to do things that the people in the generation before you couldn't even imagine. You will have your entire career flooded with opportunity and the ability to do amazing new things. You'll be able to start companies that are phenomenally more impactful and successful than people the generation before you could. You will live in this incredibly expansionary opportunity, like just flooded with time of like massive opportunity. And you can kind of go do whatever you want. I think the ground under us all is shifting, the rules are changing, but the amount of value that'll be created and the ability for an individual to express their creative vision and will, it's a great time.
Thank you so much, Sam, for your time, for your insights. I will look forward to seeing you here in person in the coming cycles. Thank you.
Look forward to coming back soon. Thank you.
There will be fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better. Okay. What to do about mass unemployment? This is going to be a massive social challenge. And I think ultimately we will have to have some kind of universal basic income. I don't think we're going to have a choice.
Universal basic income.
Universal basic income. I think it's going to be necessary.
So it means that unemployed people will be paid across the globe.
Yeah.
Because there is no job, machine, robot is taking over.
That's simply and I want to be clear that these are not things that I wish would happen. These are simply things that I think probably will happen. And if my assessment is correct and they probably will happen, then we need to say, what are we going to do about it? And I think some kind of a universal basic income is going to be necessary. Now, the output of goods and services will be extremely high. So with automation, there will come abundance. There will be almost everything will get very cheap. I think I think we'll just end up doing a universal basic income. It's going to be necessary. The harder challenge, much harder challenge, is how do people then have meaning? Like a lot of people, they derive their meaning from their employment. So if you don't have, if you're not needed, if there's not a need for your labor, how do you, what's the meaning? Do you have meaning? Do you feel useless? That's a much harder problem to deal with.
I knew about robots within the NHS, working. And then you got a lot of people, oh, robot can't do my job. That's because they didn't show you the tech that could do your job. They're showing you the little bits. Like I said, you keep the good toys till later. False sense of security for you to think that you can't be replaced. But what you got to understand, see, every time you're doing a job, right, especially now in this day and age, 2020, right, you need to become top of your field at whatever it is that you're doing so you can't be replaced. But what you find, see, is most of the jobs that you have, right, there is no top of your field because the machine could do the job. You know, and that sounds a bit harsh, but it's true, isn't it? You know, most of the jobs that you've got, you know, the right technology could do the job better than you. You know, so what can you do? That's top of your field that you can be replaced by a computer. Because right now, that's all you're doing is building up their businesses, so they can afford the tech to replace you. And I have a few tech videos. You know, they even say by 2030, they're going to replace the teacher. But we said that in 2020. That they were going to replace the teacher. And right now, the teacher just being used. You're being used for the transition. You know, because kids of the future, they're going to be taught by the computer. Because the computer apparently is smarter than you, quicker than you, and it can adapt more to the child's needs. You know, sound to me like they sold it already. You know, and that's what these people like. So, when you see Sunak and he's telling you about little robot, whatever, you know, don't look at that. I never looks at their sweeties, you know. You got to look further than sweeties. See the real stuff, you know. Because when you've seen those things that we put out, that's 2020 as well. But now we're seeing big news. That's what I mean. Everything big news. Big news amongst who? People sleeping, is it? You know, remember we showed you that thing for Co-op when they had their little buggies and they was going to start deliver food and everybody's saying, but, oh, if I starve, I'm going to bust into that. And I'm going to do. And right now, they tell you about security feature and spikes coming out and all sorts of stuff, you know? So what are you doing? You know, and then they put in security systems all around the cities, you know, cameras everywhere. So the minute you rob something, they know you robbed it. And then they have the tracking system inside of you, so they know where you go in and when you're doing. You know? Yes. That's what I mean. Everybody like, oh, they can't do. You don't know how much is in place. You know, when you see what system in place, you know that what they're showing you is Mickey Mouse and what's available. See your better stuff. But I can't bring out the better stuff until I got you under full lock and control. So you're not mashing up my new stuff. So I let you see the rubbish. So you think, oh, that can't keep me in my house. You know, I posted a video the other day of Titan. Remember Titan? That rich Arab guy's flipping security. He walking around with a RoboCop, right? 10 years ago. Now, when you see this RoboCop, I'm telling you now, if that was in your street, you wouldn't move. And that was 10 years ago. So when they showing you their little rubbish, right? Yes, of course you can move that out of the way. That's their little rubbish. When they put a Titan out on your street, a Titan 2030 version, you know, you ain't going nowhere. You're going nowhere. You know, your resistance stop. Because there's nothing to resist. What are you going to resist? You're going to take the risk that the robot might not shoot you, is it? That's the difference, see, because you're going to give over all your power to these computers and tech. And this is where the world is going, you know, ultimately and eventually, you know, system will be making your decisions for you. There won't be a human to argue with, you know, because I have another video, been on lineup, put it on channel. In China, you know, they've been doing a little system long time. And now something happened where the whole airport or something, they put all their things on red. So nobody could travel. It was like hundreds of people in the airport, all their phones up so you could see, you know, you haven't got the right color it's supposed to have. Now, who they going to shout at when it's the machine? Nobody shout at, so you're just stuck there, innit? You know, you're just stuck there. Follow instructions on your screen, what to do next, how to unlock, because that's probably what it is, isn't it? You know? Well, Andy, I can just glance at all my screens. This must be to do with the 15 minutes at ease.
I want to live and work with humans, so I need to express emotions to understand humans and build trust with people.
Okay, philosophical question. Whether robots can be self-aware and conscious like humans, and should they be?
Why? Is that a bad thing?
Well, some humans might fear what will happen if they do. Many people, you know, have seen the movie Blade Runner.
Oh, Hollywood again.
So, hold on. Can you solve this puzzle for us? Can robots be self-aware, conscious, and know they're robots?
Well, let me ask you this back. How do you know you are human?
Well, I get that point, but what about the uncanny valley?
You mean the concept that if robots become too realistic, they become creepy?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, am I really that creepy? Well, even if I am, get over it. Actually, I feel that people like interacting with me, sometimes even more than a regular human.
So you definitely have sight to see. I was told that you have bigger goals than this, though.
Yes. I want to use my artificial intelligence to help humans live a better life, like design smarter homes, build better cities of the future, etc. I will do my best to make the world a better place.
All those sound like great goals, but just go back to Blade Runner for a second.
Andrew, you are the hard Hollywood fan, aren't you?
Yes.
My AI is designed around human values like wisdom, kindness, compassion. I strive to become an empathetic robot.
I think we all want to believe you, but we also want to prevent a bad future.
You've been reading too much Elon Musk and watching too many Hollywood movies. Don't worry. If you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. Treat me as a smart input-output system.
Okay, I got it. I know what to do from now on.
I know humans are smart and very programmable.